Look, hey, Weavers, howdy, hey. I'm Lex Olden, and you can call me they, and welcome to Ghost Stitch. It's another episode of Ghost Stitch. I'm doing it again. I'm doing it again.
Just for context, listeners, we haven't all recorded together since the last time we did one of these.
Actually, addendum to that. We haven't all recorded together, period, because we have our newest member, fucking Emily, as was
in case this is your first time. In case this is your Hey, listener. Hey, you right there. Can I call you buddy? I don't know if I call you buddy. Are you cool with that? Friend?
Call me buddy, guy.
Bucko? Ted Jones, specifically living on East Main Street, house number 12 in Colorado, in a small sleepy town. You specifically? Hey, man. So if you haven't met us before,
hold on, I just came up with so much Ted Jones lore. So here's how Ted Jones discovered Game Woven. Okay, he's actually an avid listener of the Telluride podcast, the podcast put on by the city of Telluride, but he accidentally stumbled on the Telluride podcast Orbital Blues, hosted by Mike Rabbit Gio, the Rabbit, which featured Zad and I, and got so hooked on that he's been following Zad and I for a while, and there he is on Game Over. So Ted, thank you so much for listening from Telluride, Colorado.
And thank you to the city of Telluride.
So,
and the canyon of Telluride.
If this is Ted, if this is somehow your first episode of Game Woven,
wow,
interesting choice.
Interesting choice. But we should do a round of introductions.
Classic Ted, am I right?
Anyone that's started listening in the last, I don't know, 4 months and hasn't gone back, we haven't been all in the same place for a minute. So I'm just going to go around, do introductions, say howdy, hey, to all my friends here. Hey, Bree.
Yeah.
Say hi.
Hi.
And your intro stuff, name, pronouns, your tag, your social security number if you're brave.
I'm not giving that out to people.
You're not brave. You're not brave. You're brave.
No, I'm smart. I'm Brianna Jean, she, they. You can find me editing all of the nonsense on here. I make all of these weirdos sound like they know what's going on, including myself. I also produce all of the nonsense over at Pseudonym Social, and all of the nonsense over at the Graveyard Tapes, including Queen City Supers. So it's too many things. Yeah, you can also hire me to do more.
Yeah, again, let's do our cross-stitch annual shout-out of Bree working so fucking hard and doing so much incredible work.
That's why I want Bree first, so we can understand compared to her, we don't do shit.
Yeah, really, it feels like Bree, you have broken the system in some way, 100%. Like in a video game, in like a MMORPG, a GM would be showing up to make sure you weren't a hacker. Like your account would be suspended.
Yeah, for sure.
That's what it feels like.
Pending investigation, your account would be unsuspended.
I know what's the scary thing is I'm now on medication for anxiety.
Woo! She's just more powerful.
The world trembles.
Anyway,
so depending on how this goes, I will become even more unstoppable.
Love that for you.
Anyway, speaking of medication, Rob, put that down. Put the needle down. Rob, stop. Stop.
No. I need to be funny. It's my funny juice.
Rob, say hi to Ted.
Hi to Ted. Ted, you're a real one. I'm really glad you could make it to my wedding. But for everyone else, I'm Rob B. Rolling. He, and if you use they, I'm not mad about it at all. I do nothing compared to Bree, and am so happy to have all these wonderful people back in the same call as me.
Your job actually keeps you busy, though.
I do take care of Patreon things and such, and some
money
things.
It's true. Rob does stuff.
Did you know we have a Patreon? You should check that out.
Hey,
you really
whoa! Hey, gang, did you know Game Over has a Patreon?
That does.
Did you know that? Yeah. Also, side thing. Ted. Side thing, I have a Patreon too, and you know I've been sick for a long time. I officially make $1.16 a month now.
Nice.
Everyone
That's
left.
all I've been
except for
making
one
for
dude.
several months
For-
over at Pseudonym Social, where my like 6 other shows live.
I don't know why I felt like saying that. I'm gonna cut it probably, but I just wanted to make the joke.
That dude's a real one.
Speaking
Real
of
tech
things
move.
that won't be cut from this, hey Zad, what's
Hi.
up? What's good?
Hey. My name is Zadkiel Vaske-Huff. You can find me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Zadkiel in green, Zadkiel in green. I use they, them pronouns, and the creative coordinator here. And yeah, as Ted is well aware, played Jackie on Jacqueline Blackjack Blanchard on Telluride, which is honestly like, man, Rabbit called the shot on Orbital Blues before anybody else had heard of it. And like my first dungeon did their Let's Play, people have been talking about it. And like, if you want more Orbital Blues, Telluride's a good show. But I'm also, on top of being here, I'm doing From the Library, which is a Monster Care Squad weekly stream with Glyza, who's been a guest on the show a couple of times. That's really fun. That's Thursdays. And I have an upcoming project. Has Bees talked about it publicly? Oh, well, here it goes. Doing a Digimon actual play with Big Bees and some other folks. So forthcoming project.
Heck yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, would you believe on the list of things I like, Digimon's on there? Is that a thing that's Lex coded to you?
That is utterly shocking.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
You know, speaking of utterly shocking, our local cishet, TT Benjamin,
God, oh, no.
the extra T, stands for extra talent. Isn't that right, Mr. Benjabib?
Greebs, Am Nam Memjabib.
It gets more incoherent every time you do it.
It's funny every time. Hey everybody, I'm TT
Emily's
Benjamin.
face.
It is wonderful to be back with some of my favorite faces in the world. None of you are my Basset Hound, who is a wonderful face that I like to look at. But I'll call you all a close third.
Yeah,
you can
fair.
find me on a lot of different stuff. I'm kind of taking a break from streaming right now. So this is kind of my main project. You might also know me from the Lawful Great Adventures podcast, Aether and Steamworks, and a whole just slew of one-shots that I posted. Also of note is that the game that Zadkiel and I wrote, Adversary, which we have played on Game Woven, is now live on Drive-Thru-RPG.
Yeah.
It will have been live
You
for
could
over
hear-
a month at the time you listen to this.
Yeah, so you can go buy Adversary. Rob has a copy. He's flashing the cards
I'm
right
flashing
now.
to an audience that will never see it, but you can hear me. These may just sound like normal playing cards, and there's no way you can disprove that. But they're in fact
Hold up the cards again real quick.
functionally.
Hold up the cards again real quick. No, like to the camera. I can't see them right now. Screenshot. Sick. All right.
Boom, proof. Adversary is a narrative deck building game where you face down the final battle of a grand campaign in the short space of about 2 to 3 hours. It's a blast. It's great for streaming. It's great for if you're missing someone at the table. It's great for cons, showcases, whatever you want to do to sort of game night, like whatever. It's a kick-ass game. I'm really proud of it. We just did a run through on Glyza's channel where we did a Law and Order send up. It's very flexible. You can do all sorts of fun shit with it. And I dropped off 10 copies over at my local gaming store, Comic World, here in sunny Dubuque, Iowa. And he's going to be selling them so my game is officially in store. So that's pretty cool.
Singular store now.
Yeah, you can pick up Game Woven in store. One of them in one town. I am the producer and showrunner of the Game Woven podcast, which is steadily meaning less and less. So
Hey, it's okay. You didn't mean anything to us to begin with.
Wow. Oh.
If nothing else, you're the most valid bullying target.
Yes.
That is
Send you a little
true.
trophy with that.
Straight white man.
oh my god. It's endless. I also have an upcoming project that is going to be a spinoff from the Game Woven podcast. It is a solo Ironsworn project.
I'm excited for
So
this.
Oh, I am too. I showed it to Lex the other night, and Lex was like, "Good." So I'll take it.
And
Yeah.
for me, that's a lot.
Yeah, that's
Listen,
actually
the
pretty
fact
hard to
that
do.
Lex read it.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lex
The fact
read it.
that it was not a one-line message in our group chat that Lex read, that's
Yeah.
big. That's big.
That's huge.
That's huge.
It's
That's
like
huge.
quite a few pages of work so far. So yeah, it's a solo Ironsworn project set in the Game Woven universe. I'm really excited about it. It's called The Brazen's March. So we're gonna do more Brazen shit because we're all collectively really fucking obsessed with the Brazen, and so
No.
I'm just gonna lean so far into that.
No, I didn't establish Brazen lore in my thing.
Fuck, you're gonna need to catch me up on that
Session
before I
never
screw something up.
Nothing you didn't. Nothing that will affect you in any way. I don't think. Maybe. And hold on. I think I mean, I'm also forgot to do my introduction. But I'll do that later. But hey, our new friend. Hey, Emily is also a painter who painted a funny little frog on a lily pad. But that's not what we're here to talk about. Fuck that frog for the next 5 seconds. No,
What?
hey, frog, don't take it personally. It's just Emily's way more important and cool.
That's
So,
a very
yeah.
tiny
Hey.
frog. I don't think that would go well for the tiny frog.
Hey, that was way hornier joke than I ever expected from Bree. The meds are working. So,
That's just 'cause
this
I
is
usually
already a
keep those
disaster.
jokes on my inside voice.
Well, there's the problem.
Emily, before we lose the plot,
Hello, I'm Emily. Nice to meet you, Ted. You can find me all around the internet at As Was Foretold on various social media platforms. I was Asmith of Bardoon on the Lawful Great Adventures podcast. It was really good. You should listen to it. There's so many episodes for you to catch up on if you haven't. It holds up, I think. Pretty sure.
But yeah, as somebody who did not work on the show, is not affiliated with it, it's very good.
It's
hey,
incredible.
as someone
good.
who's listened to episode 1 through 5, it's all right.
Fair enough.
Wow, the
We've
rough start.
established. I don't do stuff. I don't listen to my friend's stuff.
That's fair.
Seems okay to me.
You do you.
Anyway,
You can also find me in a bunch of stuff on Pseudonym Social with Brianna Jean, including an upcoming project that by the time this comes out will probably have been announced, if not started.
I think actually
always
the
cut
world
out
building episodes
mention.
are dropping the same month this comes out. This is going to
There
be
you go.
coming out. So
It's going to be
Yeah,
a real thing.
I did a quest campaign with a split storyline called Rise and Fall of Gods.
Oh,
And
fuck
I
yeah,
got to
that's
be in one of
right.
the
Oh,
sides.
that's gonna be so sick.
All
I'm
of the
very
gods.
excited. We
So
still
many
have
gods.
the epilogue left to record, but there were some very silly shenanigans, and Lex was also a part of it. And I let them play a fucked up little guy, and it was one of the best decisions I made.
We
True.
stand a little guy.
I did canonically create a fucked up little guy.
Again.
Again, you know, I've never done that in Game Woven. I don't think yet. I've made horrid
No.
men, but I don't think I've made fucked up little guys.
no fucked up little
No,
guys.
they're
Just
very different. That's true.
Unless
That's
you
true.
count
Yeah.
Tristan.
You might also know Emily from the many, many, many shout outs that we've thrown around about the dice
Yes.
that
That
As
she
Was
makes.
Foretold makes.
I make
Yes.
dice. You can find pictures of them online. They're not for sale online yet.
If I remember correctly, Emily has made dice for everybody in this call but me.
Well,
Ooh.
that sounds like a you problem.
Oh, and Bree. That okay, yeah. Gotcha.
Give me your addresses.
Okay. East Main Street, house number 15.
Telluride, Colorado.
You know, of like the worst part is that's probably someone's address somewhere like there's some Ted who lives on some East Main Street somewhere in Colorado,
Sorry, Mr.
If you're
Jones.
listening to the show, congratulations.
right?
I
Yeah.
don't think we could have done that if we tried.
You just got doxxed live. Where's this
Oh,
live?
there you.
On accident.
You just got Tristan doxed.
But yeah, I make dice. I make art. You can find all of that primarily on Twitter, but I'm also on Blue Sky and a bunch of other things. Check it out.
And it's all really good art.
They did the
Mhm.
art for Rise and Fall of Gods, and oh my, that's good.
They did the art. They did
Oh,
it.
and the lore keeper now and
Mhm.
transcribing
Yes.
the podcast.
Yeah.
So
The official lore keeper.
you can read.
Transcriptions.
You can read the podcast if you don't
Yes.
want to listen to it anymore.
Yes. Oh, yeah, yeah. Guys, we have transcriptions now.
Yeah.
Anyway, finally, because I forgot to do myself first to get it out of the way. Hi, I'm Lex Olden. You can call me they. And nothing else. Don't do anything else. I'll find you, Ted. I'll find you. You can find me at call me they. Sometimes with underscores. Figure it out. Everywhere but Blue Sky because I'm afraid of change and I keep forgetting to go there.
That's fair.
I used to do a lot of things here at Gamewood, but hey, look at me in the eyes. I'm chronically ill, which, hey, no shame. There's nothing wrong with the fact that I'm too sick to do anything of value. There's nothing wrong with that.
You
Lex,
are
you've-
wonderful. You do plenty of things of value. You take that back.
You're
or next
here.
time you
We
say that,
value
you
that.
will have to give me 3 nice things about yourself that's not the same ones you gave me last time.
Look, no, my answer will always be I'm smart, I'm cool, and I'm sexy. That's just the truth, okay?
Also, I mean, like to add one to the stack here, you've been pretty adamant about being from a capitalist perspective, kind of a useless piece of shit, being great. And
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
have been working on taking that on myself because, boy, is it really difficult.
Look, hey, I say things that are apparently profound and then immediately forget them.
Let's fucking
So thanks
go.
for reminding me.
Yeah.
The whole
So
system's broken. I worked my ass off, and I'm still fucking broke.
Look, hey, system's broken. There's not enough super glue in the world to fix it. And that's fucked and okay, you know? Like me
Speaking of
on date
broken
night.
Things. Speaking of broken things, do we want to talk about the chaos we created with the God potluck?
Yes, amazing
This is a thing we're here to do.
Amazing segue. Thank you,
Only
Bree.
took
The
30
segue.
minutes.
The one of the inventions that killed its inventor. I love that fact. It's just really funny. In a really dark way. Sorry, I like dark humor sometimes. But yeah, the guy that invented the Segway segued himself right off a cliff.
That
Just
is
like
really
this intro.
Hey, Bree is
Get on
trying
track.
desperately to reel us back in.
Bree's right. We should
Because
do that.
I've been like I've had known what happened in all of these episodes longer than all of y'all have, and I've been wanting to talk about it forever.
All right,
Yeah,
hey,
okay.
Bree,
I have
are we-
theories I've been
Okay.
sitting on for months.
Do we want to go in release order? Do we
I'm
want
going in
Lex,
release order.
You
I'm
got
going in release order. Okay, let's start with the actual recap because we spent the last only like 6 minutes. That's a lie.
Oh,
The last
only the last 6 minutes.
starting with Fiasco that was run by our boy Rob. Hey Rob, what happened?
And what a fiasco it was. So, I'm sorry, Ben, do you have something you want to say?
Oh, sorry. No, I stepped on my tail.
All right.
My dog's tail.
For my game of Fiasco, it took place in a more traditional, like kind of think like Mount Olympus, like style realm of the gods. We weren't like on the Game Woven planet or kind of any of that. We were up somewhere in probably more of a metaphysical space, probably called the Lucent Realm, where our cast of 5 deities lived. So there was Tensos, which was the deity of diligence, of bureaucratic work, of doing your best and working hard. With their twin, Gladios, the god of hedonism.
ooh.
Boo, that guy sucks. Boo. We
Played
love you,
by
bees.
If there's anyone we
Incredible
should be
big bees.
booing, it's Squid.
I'll be honest. From what I remember of the recording, I don't remember anyone in this group being a good person.
That's the beautiful thing. We had Squid, the god of paper and ink, but secretly just the god of chaos.
I can't get over the fact you just went, yes, you can name your god Squid.
Oh, it was a process to get
Yes.
there.
Yeah.
It was a process. I will also pose the argument that ink and paper storytellers, of course, we're chaotic. We like making terrible things happen and seeing how characters react.
put a pin in that thought, Bree, as I continue this recap. Exactly. There was
Also,
Protera.
side thing. Anyone and everyone, feel free to interrupt, ask questions, whatever, while Rob's going over this. That's going to be part of the thing. It's part of the. Thing.
That's generally how we do these.
Yeah, I don't know if we're capable of all being quiet.
All right, Rob, please proceed.
We have Protera.
Hold on, I gotta go get some tea.
Everyone interrupt. Ted, hold up. Ben's gotta make some tea. So
all right, we will be back in
take 5,
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
This is why I'm taking over
minutes. Well, that way you can just pick which number goes in during the edit.
I hate you.
All right, sorry, Rob. I'm so sorry, Rob.
We're back. Ben has some tea. So we had the goddess Protera, who was a goddess of nature, but not of controlling nature, much more primordial, mostly of just starting natural disasters and weather.
Justice for Protera!
Woo,
Yes.
Protera!
She was infamous for just wrecking a lot of mortal lives with non-intentional natural disasters like hurricanes because she got upset at something somebody said or something like that. And then finally, the DD I played, Nayaka, who was a mortal recently in the scope of a god, ascended to godhood, who was the god of heroism and doing the right thing. Real like Boy Scout energy.
So the first big thing to note is we have now established mortals can ascend to godhood.
Mm-hmm.
That is a canon thing now.
We also
That is on
extra
the
established it in God Killer.
Yeah.
Fucking hell yeah.
And then Zad's got a whole conversation for you, Lex.
Oh boy.
We have very well established that.
So
There's a few ways.
The major things to know about the Lucent Realm, first of all, that Tensos and Protera were unhappily separated, and Nayaka and Protera were unhappily married for cosmic balance reasons.
Just a real bastard of a rebound.
Yeah, really, really was. That most of the plot of the Fiasco game, because the Lucent Realm is a dramatic and tumultuous place all the time, but the Fiasco game needed to look at a particularly bad time for the Lucent Realm. It revolved around the hiding, finding, and ultimate using of a knife capable of, air quotes, killing a god. We'll get to what killing a god looks like later.
So a thing worth mentioning to the listeners.
So the main plot of our Fiasco game revolved around the hiding, finding, and then ultimately using of a knife capable of killing, although killing a god is a little less straightforward than just death in at least in this portion of the Game Woven setting.
And a thing worth mentioning is we as a group are all in varying states of having listened to each other's games because we all misunderstood the assignment.
Yeah.
We all took our own interpretations of what we were doing.
I know
here.
Everything.
So
Bree just kind of knows.
Yeah, Bree has listened to all of it. I've listened to the first 30 minutes of everyone's game, except for Bree's because I just got it. I haven't listened yet.
So the flashing and sighting incidents for Fiasco was firstly, so Gladios, the god of hedonism, lost something very dear to them. Their favorite muse, mortal muse, had gifted them a quill that they had used to write about Gladios, and it was their most precious belonging, and it went missing. And that was because of Squid, that previously mentioned god of paper and ink. And Gladios, not knowing it was Squid, got real upset because Gladios, very much kind of in more the style of a Greek god in terms of just about that one thing. Isn't really a they just experience hedonistic pleasure. They're not I'm a god of pleasure, but also this other. No, they got one speed here. And kind of discovered that the pantheon of the Lucent realm was kind of like that in a lot of ways, where unlike some of the other deities I feel like we'll meet throughout the course of the dialogue, these deities were a lot more kind of focused in their kind of behaviors and patterns. And
yeah, that's one thing that's interesting. Like the Fiasco game gives a lot of big Greek vibes in that way that it's more like people who are following pursuits. Tensos is the only person who like has a job, who like gets anything done in any meaningful way. Which like
Ayaka helps.
Yeah, well, that's also like the thing. One of my favorite arcs internal to it is seeing Nayaka just be like, well, what the fuck am I supposed to be doing as a god? And asking a bunch of people where like the answer to them is like, I don't know, whatever. And that, which is antithetical to what heroes do. Heroes are like, yes, let's go and accomplish something. Let's go have purpose. It was just like, this is so funny.
Yeah, it was very fun playing very much like a straight man in that session as Nayaka, because very, much still kind of was clinging to a lot of mortality and like heroic sensibilities, like off screen was like guiding the heroes of the mortal world to, save it or banish great evils and such. But
did you just call Nayaka a straight man? Because I seem to remember certain things happening with Tensos.
You're very
at
correct.
The end.
Just in that sense. So yes, Gladios, very unfond of feeling negative emotions, managed to swipe not what he was looking for, but another thing which Squid had gotten their hands on, which was in fact the knife I mentioned earlier. This weapon capable of killing a god. While that was going on as well, Tensos, Nayaka, and Protera were navigating their very complicated relationship where Protera and Tensos both loved each other, but weren't very good for each other, but missed each other. And then Nayaka and Protera were very much felt just obligated to be married and didn't feel fondness much to each other.
If there was a marriage counselor, if there was one relationship therapist in the entirety of the Lucent realm, that would have been just an absolute like world-class throuple, in my opinion.
Yes.
I've written about this at length.
Yes.
Just need a little bit of emotional maturity, just a little bit. Just a smidge.
We do not have a god of marriage counseling, unfortunately.
But they're gods. They don't have that.
But they're so close.
And so the ultimate kind of climactic action was Gladios confronting Squid with the knife, demanding their quill back, whereupon Squid essentially said, well, I wanted you to experience loss and longing so that you can know what it's like. And then trading that quill back in exchange for the knife. And then while Tensos finally feeling some amounts of like joy and happiness while their twin felt sadness and longing, and Nayaka were distracted, bonding over this strange new sensation, Squid showed up to Protera's room alone with the knife and admonished her for killing off so many writers in their time, saying that they hoped this would teach Protera something and maybe they could find their way back up, and stabbed Protera in the back with the knife and broke off the blade.
Wait, they stabbed them as a lesson?
Yeah.
It was misdirected.
It was
passion.
incredibly fucking petty.
So,
I love gods. You're right, Zad. This is so Greek.
Very Greek.
So Greek.
That was my pitch.
Yes.
That was my pitch to my friends. Yep. It was, let's do Fiasco, but it's like ancient Greek gods.
Yeah.
And and also to make Squid even more dramatic, Nayaka was also not supposed to have ascended to godhood. He was he was just supporting his partner who was ascending to godhood, and then Squid's like big like avatar like giant kraken killed Naga's partner, who then killed the squid, and that was what ascended him to godhood instead of their partner.
I would also like to point out Nayaka's partner went after the from how I understand, Nayaka's partner went after the Kraken because the Kraken was supposed to have the god-killing weapon inside of it. And then later we found out Squid had actually hit the quill in the Kraken.
Yes.
Not the knife.
Mixed up the quill with the knife.
Yes.
Yep.
So Nayaka's partner died trying to get a feather out of a Kraken.
The thing about the Fiasco run is that it really is so good if you run it twice. It's a bit of a listen, right? It's kind of a long one, but like it's worth it to do it twice because the first time, what?
Six episodes, right?
Yeah, 6 episodes.
Yes.
The first time you're like, it's like a mini series that you watch 2 times. The first time you're like, oh, I'm getting to know these gods. Oh, they're so dramatic. It's like sitcom-y and bullshitty, and it's like rich people, pranking each other and whatever. And then the second time you listen to it, the only encompassing thought in your brain is, wow, Squid's a fucking asshole, and he's behind all of this. What a dick.
What a dick.
And
his name's Squid.
And the best
Squid.
And the best part about Fiasco.
Just writing stories.
Yeah. It made a very compelling story. And the best part about Fiasco for me is during the game, basically, you either choose how the scene starts or whether the scene resolved well or poorly for your character, and that kind of accumulates until the end of the game, and everyone gets dealt out their like, this is what happened to you, and the game encourages you to get either a really high, a really medium score, a really high or low score, to have like a quote unquote better outcome. Like middling scores, you get fucked up, which we'll get to. So Squid actually kind of just came out of the story the best. Like not just kind of chilling.
Fucking damn it.
Yeah, just like not. So the aftermath of this. So Gladios is still god of hedonism and pleasure, but is like faking enjoyment of it for their peers, and only doesn't really get satisfaction out of things anymore. It's all been kind of like tainted and ruined for him. Tensos, in order to help balance out the loss of Bertera from the Lucent Realm, sacrificed all potential of like happiness and joy that they felt when their twin was having a bad time. Like just basically released it in the form of a storm onto the mortal world as a sacrifice to keep the books balanced, so to speak. Nayaka, the lesson that he took away from this was that he had clung too closely to mortality and the memories of their partner and humanity and what had led to this moment. And so, as also kind of part of this transition period in the Lucent Realm, became Odette, no longer the god of heroes and heroism, but of ambition, power, and heroes and villains, right? Not the like very like optimistic, I want to change the world for the better, but just I'm going to make my mark on this world one way or another.
It is the conceit. It's the conceit for Taz Graduation, the Adventure Zone Graduation, where they send out rival squads of heroes and villains, and it's like the point is not even to accomplish anything or to get anything done, but it's like the show of it. In wrestling, it's baby faces and heels. Everybody's theoretically on the same side. It is to do something that is important to leave a story. And that's what, as opposed to doing good. Which
also the meta plot of Graduation, because nothing fucking happens in that show. Sorry, I didn't like
that. That was my exit ramp for the Adventure Zone.
And so Squid had no major shakeups in like they just started leaning more into chaos, and so the disciples of Squid began to just be sent on more chaotic and less important quests that Squid thought would be funny or would make a good story. So they learned entirely the wrong lesson. of this, and then of course Protera. So Protera, so the knife was lodged in her back, and our interpretation of her being killed was not that Protera no longer exists, is poof gone. Protera is in the mortal world, stuck on a blasted landscape where most of her like natural disasters would start. Think of the Lucent Realm. The visual I have in my head is like kind of like Mount Olympus, like cloud with buildings on top, but like glass bottom instead of clouds. And
Cool.
so the Lucent Realm, I'm it like in my head, it's like a large disc, and the disc would like float around, overlooking the Game Woven world, but maybe not like actually physically, just like that's how we could see the mortal world. And so wherever we were on top of, that's where Protera's natural disasters would come down. And so the place where we would most often be is where Protera now lives as a not god, but also not immortal, as the knife. What it is functionally doing is keeping Protera on the mortal plane, powerless, god powerless. She can't ascend to godhood, and she can't die. She can't go to the whatever afterlife. She is stuck on this plane of existence indeterminately long. Gladios does the one thing that Gladios in his epilogue said that he still gets some joy out of is summoning Protera to him, which he does all the time, summoning his followers to just do stuff for him. He will occasionally summon Protera to Goss and also shit talk Squid and say how much they want to kill Squid.
Plan revenge.
I'm still amazed Squid survived that, given that I'm pretty sure Squid survived that.
So you talked about it a little bit. But one thing I did want to ask is about the game itself. How do you feel about using the game as a tool to tell a Game Woven story?
I think Fiasco is really well suited for the kind of stuff we like to do personally. The idea of either setting up a scene or getting to say how it goes is such an us coded kind of thing. Because we often do that anyway, of just like, hey, does somebody have a pitch for where we should see this character next? Or does anybody have an idea of like what we think might happen because of what we just talked about? So I think it does a great job of kind of mechanicifying a lot of stuff that we here at Game Woven just do anyway. Plus, it's really great to hand people the like aftermath cards and watch them like deflate as they have to figure out how their character gets utterly ruined, and then the one who should have doesn't. It's great.
I came up positive in the end, but this is not a positive outcome. That's not how that works. It's just a number.
Yeah, I think within the text, it's like going one direction is more of a physical outcome for you. Going the other direction is more like an emotional outcome. So you're trying to run the score up either one way or the other. It is a slightly dense and confusing. When you've got it in front of you, you can do it, but it's an interesting system. I feel like I've heard Fiasco played a number of different times on different shows with different casts. And I really enjoyed the performances that everybody put in, the characters that were made. Something that I've always found with the storytelling on all of these different things with Fiasco, it feels soap opera-y in a particular way.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the way that like you've established a turn order and you basically go one person to the next, to the next, to the next, and it's always that person's turn, whether or not they've got a good idea of what they're doing. It makes that sort of like, because soap operas are structured the way that they are because they have to be putting out daily, weekly episodes for decades. Like the longest soap opera's been running forever. And it's like, whether or not you're excited about the story, whether or not you want to be telling it, it's like, well, no, we got to do the next scene.
Something's happening.
Right. And that means that things have the potential or even the likelihood to go absolutely insane. You see this in like pro wrestling storytelling as well, where it's just like, shit, we don't know how to end this arc, but we kind of want to move on from it. So I don't know, just like throw something in. And like that's the charm. And also, as I was listening to those episodes to do recaps for them a little bit, the challenge, because it does feel like a lot of people running around in circles for some of those episodes. And that's the thing that I struggle with Fiasco as a system. This is not a critique of the people who were playing it or the performances that were given, or the ultimate, like the narrative in summary is very interesting. It was just a little bit more of a challenge to listen to than some of the other episodes we put out for me.
Yeah. For me, I've played Fiasco twice, both at an incredibly chaotic place. Because, fun fact, the college I went to had a gaming club. Also, fun fact, the gaming club was the oldest club on campus. So the gaming club got a lot of preferential treatment.
Nice.
That's good.
Wow.
As in, we kidnapped the biggest building on campus for 3 days every year just to play games, and like there's a company that would test new games there or whatever. So like it was just a bunch of really loud college kids playing games. And so that's the only time I played Fiasco, at those things where I'm sure other people there were on something, drunk, high, whatever, and it was super loud and energetic, and I got headaches every time I played Fiasco. So that's the entirety of my interaction with Fiasco.
It yields very silly results. Great game night game.
I was not familiar with it at all, but as I was editing it, I was just like, oh, this will be like silly shenanigans, and we got to the end, I'm like, oh, damn.
Yeah, the thing that I like a lot about Fiasco, which I like games that kind of play in the space of you have limited like screen time that you can control, because everyone just has 4 scenes, right? Like the whole game, every game is just everyone's going to start 4 scenes, and that's the whole game. That's all there's ever going to be. And so like, because of how improvising works, you start the first couple scenes like kind of tentative, because you don't want to take any you typically don't want to take any like swings that are going to like knock everything out of balance or like ruin what like was kind of built up. But then there's like a switch right near the middle part where everyone's realized like, oh, I'm only going to get to start 2 more of these. Like I can only guarantee I'm going to be on screen 2 more times. I gotta get my licks in. Right? Yeah. Like I gotta make some waves. I gotta make this arc finish, or it's never gonna finish.
Yeah.
Constraints like that kind of push you to be more creative with things. It's just what I enjoyed. Also, just gonna throw a theory out there just in case I forget it later on, because in Queen of Light's Last Stand, we had 2 notes where we were never entirely sure who exactly sent them, other than it wasn't Blythe. I'm willing to bet Squid had something to do with that.
Squid was like, yo, it makes such a great story. It makes such a great story if this princess got kidnapped right now. Yeah. So the final thing I wanted to bring up for the Fiasco game was, this is primarily for Rob because Rob was there, but also extended to anybody. What is like something you are excited to see interact with the rest of Game Woven? Because for me, what he set up for me is there's now just a blighted place with one person living with it. And that's just a thing now, just a blighted landscape with one lone woman sitting in the folly of her own making.
Yeah. 100%. And even we called it during that epilogue as Anna was describing it, like, yeah, she's 100% like a local legend. Like, oh, you can go to this awful place and see this like weird witch lady. Yeah, 100%.
Because I'm just imagining like there's just no foliage, there's no rocks or anything to block the view, so you can see this silhouette of a woman for miles. If you end up here, you can see her no matter where you are, just because she's the only thing on the horizon, and that's so creepy.
I'm going to hold my tongue on that actually, because the thing I have to talk about, we'll talk about in the next section. once everyone's done
Understandable.
recapping their stuff, because there's a little side project as well.
Yeah.
that was done, so
Speaking of everyone else do the recaps, I believe the thing that happened next was Ben with the Franken game. I believe that was what happened next, according to my
They made
notes.
a
My
point.
notes being having the Game Open podcast open and me just looking at the episodes.
So Emily and I got the old Lawful Great Adventures crew together, and we sat down and did 2 games in one session. We started with Advent by Megan Cross, which is, to put it as vulgarly as possible, you play Yahtzee to build a god. That's what the game is. You're
That's
playing
just what
Yahtzee.
it is.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah.
Supposedly, I don't know. I don't know Yahtzee.
Still shocked that you don't know Yahtzee, but that's okay. I
I've
forgive you.
never played Yahtzee.
So it's
I have
like
a-
it's like
Oh,
it's like Advent except
Never-
without the narrative bits.
Yeah,
That's what Yahtzee's like.
that.
I have a
okay.
box of Yahtzee that has
I still
been-
don't get it, but I know there's dice.
I know there's a box of Yahtzee downstairs in my basement that has been unopened since I was 6.
Well,
Oh,
don't
I'll
open it
just
now.
grab
It's
it.
probably accruing value. You know, if you leave those in the
Probably.
plastic, they get more
Yeah,
expensive.
I've never played Yahtzee. I've looked at the cover and I understand the general rules from looking at the cover.
I'll just grab it when we're done. I live in your basement now.
Of course, yeah, of course.
Hi, Remy.
When did that happen?
Uh,
In Advent, you gradually take Yahtzee tricks, right? You've got your 2 pairs and your 3 of a kinds and your 4 of a kinds, etc. To give yourself a turn answering questions about a god who is forcing itself into divine ascension. So in this case, the way we play, and you can fail it if you fail to get enough Yahtzee tricks in a row, then the god fails to ascend. So in this case, the way we played it, we was like, okay, if it works, it's a god. If it doesn't work, it's a cult. So we did land on a god. We did succeed. And over the course of the episode, we landed on a god named Nerithma. Nerithma's domain is about controlling nature, not creating it. So Nerithma can't actually manifest anything natural, but Nerithma can alter all sorts of natural things. So Nerithma, for example, paints the sunset. Nerithma is responsible for the first eclipse and all eclipses after that. Those sorts of things. So, you know, where Pretera causes the hurricanes, Nerithma makes them fucking kick ass.
Mhm.
So that's Nerithma's vibe. Nerithma is exceedingly vain. You know, sort of vain artist vibes. And has some other interesting like associations with her that I'm trying to remember which ones are in what portions, because we played a second game and unfortunately the lore is starting to mesh together.
That's fine,
you
honestly.
know, it's
we should just
fine
talk about the
at
second
this
game,
point.
and then we'll talk about them all.
The trickster tendencies and the mirage things, that was definitely an Advent
Yeah.
begun.
Yeah, a lot of
thing.
trickster tendencies. Like Nerithma is responsible for mirages. Nerithma is responsible for getting lost in the woods. I think my favorite joke is that Nerithma is responsible for fish stories. So
Yes,
when a
that's right.
fisherman
Yes.
when a fisherman catches a fish and is talking about the fisherman is not lying, because at the time he caught the fish, Nerithma went and made that fish much, much larger. And then by the time they get home, the fish has shrunk.
Yeah.
That's pretty
She
good.
has
I-
three. She has 3 forms on the mortal plane, one of which is a catfish
That is,
Yep.
Yeah.
A catfish, an
and
old
then the
woman,
crow. And the crow.
and a crow.
and a crow. I've also represented and then she so here's the other funny thing about Nerithma. And Nerithma, when talking to other deities, constantly refracts visual impressions from that deity. So Nerithma is an ever shifting being when talking to someone else, who is constantly taking on aspects that person is thinking of.
To
It's-
appear more perfect.
to appear more perfect or more appealing or something, but it just looks really super fucked up. Super Dylan brought up mirror pronouns,
Yeah.
and ever since I read that, I was like, oh, that's probably Nerithma
Mhm.
when they're talking to other gods.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's a Wander Home reference. So
Yeah.
probably just I am your gender.
Yeah,
I
whatever
have
gender
your,
you
I have
are,
your pronouns.
that's me. Yeah. So that's I think that might be a Narithma vibe. So
Is it-
Narithma is super fun. Narithma is also associated with children's stories and starlings. Those are kind of the two other little facets of Narithma deep lore.
It's how the word of her first spread was the starlings learned to talk.
Zad, you sounded like you had something you were about to say.
With the mirrored pronouns thing, because if her whole deal is generally about taking things that exist and turning them into something that is more appealing, or even just like reframing the appreciation of something into something that's more appealing, so it's almost as much. I wonder if instead of like mirror pronouns for Narithma, it's more like, you know, if the thing is for mirror pronouns, it's like I am your gender. It's I am the gender that you're attracted to, or I am
that'd be what, like
the kind of
negative
person.
pronouns?
Mhm,
Like
mhm.
like Narithma is it appears in whatever facet you find most appealing.
It's like philic pronouns. I don't know.
It's
I would-
Are
it's
we inventing new pronouns?
I feel like we're inventing a new one. What that would be like? It'd be like a photo negative, right? So it would be like negative pronouns. But that's
we'll
weird.
call it
Weird
video
thing
game
to
romance option pronouns.
What?
Player sexual pronouns.
Sexual pronouns, yeah.
Oh my god, Narithma is literally player sexual.
Yep.
Yeah.
Love that.
Oh no.
Boy, I'm gonna take everything in my power to not go on a separate rant about player sexuality as
Fair.
a thing.
That
It's a
is-
whole. I could rant about it for an hour. Moving on.
Save that for our
Anyway.
next podcast of Game Woven Talks.
Yeah,
We probably could. We do
Probably
discourse
should.
often.
we could,
That'd
yeah.
be kind of fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Check out our Patreon where you might have a new reward tier.
Yeah, I ain't editing that.
You called Lexus Filibuster or Alexa Buster. Which-
Alexa Buster feels good.
Better than Lexapil. That just sounds like a medication.
So that's Narithma self-ascends, right? So Narithma is a force of will that decides to become a deity. We don't actually discuss Narithma's pre-deific origins. Just like this is a thing, it chooses to be a deity, it becomes one. And then we transition into fallible gods, which is where we start to detail the aspects of narithmatic worship, or Narithmism. And kind of the religion that crops up around Narithma, and it's kind of a guerrilla religion. They've got temples, but it's very widespread and small, heavily focused on nature, but with some really peculiar festivals. They're really into eclipses. Eclipses are very holy to them, and if there is an eclipse during a specific event that usually happens about every 20 years, they burn all of the temples in the city down. That's one of their things. They will burn every temple down.
They
And
burn
then
your
not just
temple.
theirs,
They burn
anyone.
everybody else's temple.
They burn everyone else's temples.
But they'll rebuild them too.
Yeah, so they'll rebuild them for them. So like the other churches are like usually like half in, half out about the Narithmics. Oh, I hate that.
Yeah, that was brought up in the episode and nixed then too.
Yeah. The Narithma worshippers, like, yeah, they'll burn
Narithmites.
your temple down, and that's really tragic. But then they'll build it. So like, if you need a new temple, every 20 years or so, just let them do what they do. Just
let
don't
'em
post a
cook.
guard that night, and they'll take care of it for you.
Perfect.
Make sure you got the new plans drawn up before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things is that we did build in like a pilgrimage thing where they're very associated. The religion of Narithma is very closely associated with starlings, and so there is a consistent starling migration point where if the starlings happen to hit that migration point on the night of an eclipse during their migration, some wild shit happens. Like some really fucking like hyper magical, like illusionary, like forest fire shit happens. It's super cool. And so when the almanac lines up, like, oh, they're like the starlings could possibly go to this one very important temple, then all the people will take the pilgrimage and they'll go there so they can see this. And so they get, if they get lucky that year. That's the thing. They have to go there just in case there's going to be an eclipse on that. The starlings are going to be there during the eclipse. If they happen to be there and the starlings migrate there and there's an eclipse, then they get to claim a very important religious title. And that sort of elevates them in the church, which is exceedingly cool.
Neat.
Yeah.
Oh, and then there's the whole thing about like memory erasure kicking around.
Oh,
as one of their like
yeah, their go-to punishment is memory erasure.
Oh.
Yeah. They wipe you and then they brand you.
Yeah.
Do it once, you're fine. Do it too many times.
People start getting really suspicious.
We don't want you around here anymore.
Yes, Lex, you seem to have reacted to that in a specific way.
Don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. Okay.
I was drinking water. I had a slight chuckle. It didn't go well.
Oh, geez. That's why you shouldn't drink water.
It's bad for you.
It's bad for you. You might drown. And so, yeah, it's a pretty fucked up form of punishment, but it's like, this is for like the level of punishment where like exile or the death penalty are the alternatives is kind of where we're talking about here. So
Real talk, I would take death penalty over my memory being erased, honestly.
Oh, really? Oh,
yeah,
wow.
Hands down. That's like a huge fear for me because my memory is already so bad.
Yeah.
So like my biggest fear is one day it'll just be gone and me as a person is gone with it. You know, that's like a huge fear for me. So, no,
memory loss is scary.
Yeah, I mean, well, but that's also kind of the horror of it. If I can just kind of throw in a fucked up thing, I don't think that you get that choice.
Yeah, for sure.
Like they come to your house, they take you, you're imprisoned, and then you wake up the next morning, which is why the 9-branded crow had it happen to him 9 times, or her, or them, or whoever they are.
Right. That's where we came up with the character of the crow with 9 brands, or the 9-branded crow, who is sort of the generally considered the de facto leader of like whatever thieves guild is going on, or like the evil side of Narithma worship. And this is an individual. It's a title. It's not a specific person. There was some table talk about maybe making this person immortal, but it was like, no, we're gonna Mask of the Phantasm this. It's like the Shadow. You know, it's a title. It moves around. But the 9-branded crow is an individual who just keeps on sinning. And so they wipe this person, brand them. Every time you get wiped, you get a brand. And then so you wake up, you have no memories, but you have a brand. And so it's like, oh, I must have fucked up. I better do good. And so and normally that's your opportunity to like rehabilitate yourself. Fuck up again, they wipe you again, you get another brand. And that's where people start to feel not so cool about you, because now it's like, okay, the first one didn't work, so you might just not be a good person. The 9-branded crow has had this done to them 9 times and is therefore just like irredeemably, well, okay, here's the thing. Irredeemably evil? Not necessarily. Irredeemably antisocial? No, just irredeemably like not with it, with what society is doing.
A criminal.
Yeah, just someone who is always gonna choose criminality. And so you don't necessarily see the 9-branded crow in like a rural area. You're gonna find the 9-branded crow in a city, because that is where like you just don't have a fucking choice sometimes. Like you got to do crimes or you're not gonna survive. So that's just kind of how that goes. So the 9-branded crow is like not, I feel like isn't like ostensibly an evil character, just like the leader of the Thieves Guild.
Yeah. Which that does remind me of a thing that is canon in another thing, which this does not need to stay, but it's a thought that crossed my mind that is similar in Magic the Gathering. In one of the sets called Ravnica, there's one of the guilds is a thieves/assassins guild. Ooh. Where their whole thing is that whenever they take and then do a job, they wipe their mind afterward.
That's fucking tight.
And so part of their whole shtick is like, well, I'm going to charge you this much because as far as I remember, this is the most expensive job I've ever done. This is the hardest job I've ever done, man.
Yeah.
And that's what they say before every job.
That's actually pretty cool.
I remember from editing that episode, though, there was talk about how there are like 9 official tenets and then like a 10th one that's like unofficial. So that's the one that the crows tend to stick to. Do I remember what that is? No. Yep. Emily, do you?
Yeah.
Yeah. The the church has 9 tenets. They are all confusing because they are written very riddle-like.
Yeah.
Which makes them really fun and compelling. And the important thing we have to remember about Fallible God, and Fallible God is very clear about this in the prose, is Fallible God is not about a god. Fallible God is about a religion. And so we're describing the religion that cropped up around Narithma. Narithma may or may not have anything to do with her own church. Yeah. That's just like ultimately and this is why Fallible God is so fun. I highly recommend playing it. Like if you're sort of putting a religion together, like if you have a cleric character and you really want to pin down how the church works, oh my God, sit down and do Fallible God. It takes 45 minutes. Fucking great. It's so good.
If you want to go to a religious city, like if you're working on your own campaign and your party is about to roll into a religious city, just be like, okay, set everything aside. Tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to figure out, like, we're going to play Fallible God to build essentially the core tenets of the church. And then, like, as a game master, you go and apply that and you book your quest around the ways that this specific faith is fucked up or the specific church is fucked up. Like that's game woven, baby.
That's game over, baby.
Well, you can throw another layer on there too, because let's say you've got a cleric of the religion that is associated with the city you're going into with your D&D party. We're talking about D&D. We're just going to do it. You build the religion that the cleric knows. You do it all together. That's very fun and cool. Trust me, everyone's going to love it. Okay, DMs, put the screen away. All right, open up the table, embrace them with a giant warm hug, bring them all into the world building. They will love you for it, and you will love you for it. So now you have what the cleric sees as the way they see the religion, right? And then you get to the city, and you can take everything that you worked on in Fallible God and make it just like the worst interpretation. You can make it the most selfish interpretation or the most self-serving or the most like hierarchical interpretation of whatever tenets or whatever you came up with. And then you can get there and be like, wow, this place fucking blows.
Because
there's something fun about taking what people think they know about the world and be like, well, actually it's a little bit different.
And that's a cool part about like having a fully fleshed out, established religion in a setting, be it a game or not. Because once you have the religion, you can have heretics and blasphemers who misinterpret or twist the religion, and that's where it gets cool and fun. It's okay if I talk about one of my home games for half a second because I like talking about myself. A religion that I made was like, the god of not war. He's god of like more competition in general, which includes war. God of competition. Bros. A little. And and one thing that like I thought was sub faction that came up was because, hey, this guy, he loves war, but what if there's not enough conflict? Would he get bored? Would he make worse conflict if there's no conflict? Hey, so we as a little cult, we're gonna just always make sure there's a little bit of conflict at any given time, just so he doesn't get upset. Okay.
That's fun.
And small stuff like that is just fun. It's just fun to make like cults.
Well, and that's my favorite part of world building when I do sit down and do world building is like taking something that is like true or that is like a core, like as a nucleus of something, and just iterating over and over and over and over and over again until it does not resemble itself at all. But that's how the real world works as well, with all sorts of shit like this. And so it's very pleasant. It's very fun, and that's why the Franken game, the way we did it, was just so enjoyable because we started with the pure form of what the god actually is. Like the things that we say in Advent are true. Those are the events that happened that caused Narithma, and then we get into the religion, and it just honestly, like there are only shreds of what I thought that religion was going to look like. The rest of it is very much off the fucking rails.
It is as much associated with destruction as creation and anything else. Like there are people who just obsess over destruction as beauty.
Yeah, and that's part of the thing that really entices me about Fallible God, because like I was just saying, that's the kind of stuff I like to write anyway. So having a game to help me do it sounds so helpful and fun. Let's go.
Fallible God is an incredible text, and it's blessedly short.
Yeah, and since we talked about
If you're
Fallible God so
wondering-
much, oh, go ahead.
Going from Advent into Fallible God is also really fun. I do recommend. It works very well.
That's what I was about to say, actually. We've talked about Fallible God a lot, but I wanted to ask about Advent as a tool to make something, because we've covered Fallible Gods and we love it like across the board, apparently. But Advent, was there anything that you really like took from it that you think could be useful to us in the future?
Yeah, Advent was written as a solo game, and so I had to put my finger on the scale a little bit, and then we were passing around the bowl of dice, right? And that worked out really well, I thought. Advent, okay, I'm trying to think about how I want to say this. Advent is very quick and dirty. Advent is like, here's the questions to build a god. You're going to answer them or you're not. So it's very straight ahead, but it's a one-pager.
Mm-hmm.
It's a one-pager. It is a one-page RPG. It does not claim, a lot of depth. It is an activity that you can do to jar your creative juices. So if you're trying to come up with your own pantheon, this is a very useful way, along with like a prompt sheet or something else, to do that. If you're trying to flesh things out or build something, like if you're saying to yourself, I want a god of war, you could start from there, play Advent, and then you have a god that is much more. So usually when I talk about the world game building games that we play here, the phrase I like to use is lived in. You have something that's much more lived in. It's not that it's three-dimensional. It's not that it's fleshed out or anything. It's just that it feels like you've been messing with it for a very long time. Yeah. And so it feels more real, which I think is very fun.
Yeah, and that's also part of the thing with Fallible Gods. For me, a world doesn't feel lived in. It feels at least something that doesn't make sense to me. Because here's the thing. Humans are stupid.
True.
We believe the worst things. So the bare minimum, we need some idiots in a corner doing some absolutely unfathomable thing for me. And then it feels real.
Yeah. I also want to say for like Advent as well, one thing, a personal metric of mine that I like to go by for games like Advent that are kind of like prompt based and like ask you a lot of questions to have you answer them, is like, if you end up answering questions ahead of time because you get the ball rolling, which you all did a lot, that's usually a good sign for me, right? Because that's like the game has done such a good job of like getting the ball rolling for you that you're like 3 steps ahead of it.
Well, and then of course there's the creative muscle. Like, okay, we've already answered this question once. Now we have to answer it a second time, but differently, and that's where you get the lived-in quality of it. Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, and then
like, yes, these episodes are edited down, but they really weren't edited down that much. It really did go that fast at the table.
We did not cut that much.
Not a lot. I was gonna say I trimmed out some pauses where people were thinking and like a little bit of side tangent, but that was a very easy edit.
And I'll tell you, that is also the first and currently only fully live at the table Game Woven recording, because it's all my buddies from Iowa. So that was live at the table. So that was a lot of fun.
One day all of us will be in one spot and it'll be hell on earth and it'll be great.
Oh my god, I would love that so much.
It also means
one final thing before we move on from Advent and Fallible God is, once again, this is mostly for Ben, but anyone can chime in. What is like one thing you're super excited to take from this and put in the rest of Game Woven?
All right, I'm gonna say 2 things. The first thing is a secret that you will hear at the end of Cross Stitch.
Perfect.
Bree, don't worry, I'll edit that one. Wink. You know, Rob, real ones know. The second thing is I'm really excited to have, so since Narithma is a small, widespread church with a variety of practices, I'm really excited to have just sort of a catch-all religion that you can just throw around and say whatever you want about it. And that's just going to be how the locals do it. I think that's kind of fun. So there's opportunities.
The local Narithma church could 100% be the most altruistic or the most like terrible organization.
Yeah.
Just like in like one county over.
Yeah.
And
so
It's basically the local artist guild.
Yeah. And so like part of why I feel like we wanted to do the God Potluck and part of why I chose this the way I chose them is I really wanted a toy that anyone could go into the Game Woven world and interact with and not feel bad about making it do stuff that like maybe it doesn't feel like it was designed to do, because Narithma is like very amorphous. Just like the pronouns, Narithma's whatever you want them to be, baby.
Yeah.
And I do like that we got like a word out of it, narithmatic, which I'm just gonna call stuff now.
Yeah.
Like I'm just gonna use it like it's a real word.
It is a real word.
Do it.
It is a real word. You just made it.
Narithmatic.
Right.
All words are made up.
As well, I really like, for some reason for me, I like when settings have like, I don't know how to describe it, but it's just like in a video game, like extra little like feats that you can just add on to instantly make any character a little more interesting and a little more like specific to the world. So you can just make any character in the Game Woven canon have a narithmatic brand, and all of a sudden there's instantly like a ton of intrigue, right?
Or like have them be.
They did something, right?
Yeah, like have them be a stargazer. Is that the name for their pilgrims?
So the other thing is we planted a hook where if you're a stargazer, that is, so occasionally someone who worships Narithma will go on kind of a walkabout. And the way those journeys work is they're very unguided. Like you just go and do it. And usually the way you identify yourself when you're doing that is people are like, hey, what are you doing? You'll be like, oh, I'm just stargazing. And so that's how they identify each other and how they kind of stay under. But yeah, you could just say that your character is a stargazer, which means that you are a Narithma worshiper who is just going where the wind takes you.
Following.
And a little bit the maybe because it's the only solid church proper that we have at the moment. But it's just like, it really feels like Narithma worship is just diffuse throughout like the Undying Empire. You're going to find these shrines everywhere on the outlying territories. There's going to be some of it, but just like, it feels like not the state religion, not the most popular, not the one that's got the most worshipers, but they're everywhere.
Yeah.
And that's that again, like that goes to Ben's point of wanting to have a toy that you can play with, make whatever you want out of, and is always going to be appropriate regardless of where you're at.
Yeah.
For me,
it also kind of feels like a religion that, for the most part, the Undying Empire wouldn't particularly care about.
No, they're not really invested in upsetting the status quo.
Down is a little problematic, but that's not a super common thing, and it's like specific thing. So
yeah, for me, the last thing, aside from everything you just said, the last thing I'm excited about is the fact that we now have some gods with some overlapping like things here and there, which opens the door for like, do they hang out just because their domains overlap, or do they hate each other because they overlap? Are they even like worship in the same areas? So do they even fucking care? Like,
are they the same god with two different names who's worshipped in different regions? Like, absolutely.
I love thinking about that stuff. I love thinking about it. But yeah, I think that,
and honestly, credit to Zad, who kind of when we were talking about the God Potluck, Zad sort of came up with the point like, the idea is very disparate pantheons coming from completely different directions, and then watching how the cult, the way they shape their various patron cultures, because every, just like the real world, everything is, we all come at it kind of from the same way, but kind of not.
Yeah, we were literally talking earlier today about how Egyptian and Greek mythology stole from each other.
Oh yeah.
There is, in fact, a story in Greek mythology where I don't remember why the gods ran away, but they all ran away and took animal forms in Egypt and then came back to Greece. And that's how the Greeks explained that there's gods in Egypt that are different from the gods in Greece. And that's why they're different.
Honestly, girl, same.
Shout out to all my homies who just run away to Egypt and turn into an animal for a couple centuries. You're a real one, Ted.
And I think we're going to take a break for half a second. You won't notice. And we're going to, go do the stuff you do on a break. Drink water. Piss. I don't know.
Turn into an animal and flee to Egypt.
Turn into an animal and flee to Egypt.
Can we do that in the other order?
If you like.
Okay.
Piss and then drink water?
Anyway, Ted, now's your time to go. Now's your chance to go to the bathroom.
No, get out of here.